Hi, welcome back to Gospel Chats. Marshall, and this is Ryan, and we're so glad to have you joining us. Thank you so much for sharing your time with us. Yesterday, you said today you want to talk about competition. Is it good or bad?
Yeah.
And you've been thinking about this a long time, and I have not. So I am super intrigued to see what you have to say, and also a little bit nervous about.
Don't worry, it's not a competition between who knows more out of you and I. Right?
I will concede already. Ryan knows more about this subject for sure.
No. It's a big one. It's been a big part of my life. And so honestly, I already know going into this conversation, it's going to hurt a little bit, but I hope that's in a good way. Because I want to push some things that I haven't questioned, that I don't know if we question very often, which is just that the thesis question statement I guess I want to wrestle with you is competition a good thing for a disciple of Jesus Christ? And I want to read you something. Okay. So I got my reading glasses, and it's actually going to be 2 pages, so it's going to take just a second.
Wow.
But I don't want to paraphrase it because it caught me in my tracks. So this is a little book from Dean Hughes called The Cost of Winning, Coming in First Across the Wrong Finish Line. I love it. Some people's titles are just
so good.
They're good. The Cost of Winning. Okay. And he starts off with this story. Every now and then I experience something that jars me, that opens my eyes to just how fouled up our values can get. I had the kind of experience a few years ago at a youth league baseball game. One afternoon, I thought I'd walk over to our neighborhood park and watch an inning or two, just to remind myself of the atmosphere. I was writing a series of children's books about baseball, and I wanted to be as authentic as possible. But as I approached the diamond, I witnessed something I could hardly believe. 4 men, probably in their late 30s, were standing near first base. They were leaning over a low fence toward the infield as far as they could, and they were bellowing in fanatic voices, "You can't throw a strike, kid! You know you can't! You're going to walk this guy!" On the mound was a chunky boy, maybe 11, who was staring at his catcher. I noticed also that the bases were loaded. A walk would force in a run. The players on the bench were shouting too, and so were some of the spectators. But the 4 adults were drowning out all the other voices. "You can't throw a strike. You know you're going to walk him." The boy did throw a bad pitch, and the men yelped with joy. Then they started the chant again. They kept it up until the pitcher, as predicted, threw a 4th ball, which forced in the run. All the boys on the batter's team cheered, and the 4 men went wild, clapping and shouting. And then they started again. "You'll walk this next guy too. You know you can't throw strikes." But the pitcher, a big boy for his age, was standing with his arms folded, and I could see that he was losing his fight with his emotions. His chest began to heave as he broke down. His coach walked out to the mound, put his arm around the boy's shoulders, talked to him for a few seconds, and then sent him to the bench. To the cheers of the 4 men, who were apparently proud of themselves, another boy trotted in from the outfield to take over the pitching. But now the same guys were on another rant. "Hey kid, what makes you think you can pitch? You can't throw strikes either." I thought the umpire might go over and tell them to stop, but he didn't. No parents objected either, so I left. I decided I didn't want my children's books to be that authentic. It seemed just as well that I keep my memories, however idealized they might be, of how baseball was when I was a boy. But I've always regretted that I didn't go over and ask those 4 men what they thought they were doing. Maybe they would have told me that they were preparing that young pitcher for the pressures he would have to face in life. Or maybe they would have said, "Hey, it's all part of the game." But chances are they hadn't really thought that far. They were fathers of players, I'm sure, and they wanted their boys to win. They saw a way to make it happen. After all, winning isn't everything, it's the only thing. Didn't Vince Lombardi teach us that? And haven't we bought into that mentality? Okay, so I'm reading that, and I have been like everyone in that story. I have been the 11-year-old pitcher in the middle of that and losing control of my emotions as the yells and the screams. I have been the opposing players. I've been the coach. I've probably been that parent in some ways. I've been the bystander scratching my head, wondering what in the world are we doing? And again, like this isn't a sports-only conversation. I want it to be much bigger than that, but I think it does get magnified in that arena. But I think we carry it over like so many other maybe philosophies of men that we've kind of questioned in our conversations with each other. Is competition a good thing? Or does it actually feed into the natural man and these things that are not good, not healthy, not Christ-like? There you go. There's my question. Is competition a good thing for a disciple of Christ?
Well, what a loaded question when you start with that story of competition.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Well, it highlights the reality of this is not some theoretical vague. We see this played out in a million different ways every day, including in a little league. And so here's a little side note. This is downtown Provo.
Yeah.
Guaranteed. I'm pretty confident, statistically speaking, those 4 men are members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints.
Yeah.
And again, I've been there. I'm not throwing other people under the bus fully, and if I am, I'm throwing myself out there. Yeah. But these are members of the church acting that way.
Yeah.
So is it good?
Well, clearly that's not. Right. Okay. Clearly. And if we're going to play with this, because if I can just turn it on its head just a little bit, because I think there are other stories you could find of competition that bring out the absolute best in human spirit. The idea of, the runner from Africa in the Mexico City Olympics who comes in hours after everyone else because he was sent to finish the race, not start the race. Or those people, who help other people across the finish line or pull their hamstring in the middle and limp their way done as part of this idea of the ideal of the human spirit. Now, and so I think this is where you're getting is this question of, is that competition? What is actually the driving force there?
Yeah.
And is there any benefit between the clash?
Yeah, I love it because those examples that you bring up really do highlight the best in the human spirit.
Yeah.
And so it makes me wonder, in those cases, who was the competition with?
Right, exactly.
And is competition even the right word there? Yeah.
Well, and I think that's. I mean, I haven't really had a day to think about this, but I that's one of the things that I come to is competition really works when it is you versus you. And I played around the scriptures a little bit, and there's not a lot of competition in there, although Paul does talk about finishing races and running races.
Yes, he does.
And fighting the good fight.
Yep.
So there is competition metaphor that we start to see there. But I think once again, all of those things start to be this idea of finishing the race, doing this. And it is a very you versus you ideal. And then part of this, we use some of those Olympic stories or the triathlon or the Ironman, the idea of you versus you, but also being inspired and lifted by others around you who are better than you or who are working to be the very best that they can be.
Yeah.
But the danger comes when it is, like you said, the cost of winning, is this a chance for me to do my very best? Is this a chance for me to improve? Or is this a chance for me to make sure that I'm in the right place in the pecking order?
Yes. So my thoughts have kind of landed on that. If it is me competing against someone else, anyone else, I find no justification anywhere in the gospel for that being a good thing. And I find a lot of evidence in my lived experience that it is bad, and it brings out bad things in me and in others. If it is competing against myself and others who I would view as the opponent, the opposing team, the opposing runner, whoever the others are, they are simply there as feedback for how I'm doing. I need some sort of sounding board, right, to see if I'm getting better. I need someone on the other side of me, opposition, I guess, in all things kind of thing. I need something there as a measuring stick so I can kind of see if I'm making improvements. But if I could keep it in that realm, I think there could be something good and productive and healthy. The problem is, rarely do we keep it in that realm, right? The opponent is the enemy. They are the other. It is about, two quotes. That, again, because I didn't want to get weird with this because I was way on the other side. If you would have grabbed me even into my 20s and told me, that competition is bad, I would have had all these stories. No, my life has been based on, and I learned how to work hard and work with other teams, and I would take back so much of that at this point. And so President Benson, in his talk, Beware of Pride, quotes C.S. Lewis. Pride gets no pleasure out of having something, only out of having more of it than the next man. We say that people are proud of being rich or clever or good looking, but they're not. They are proud of being richer or cleverer or better looking. than others. That's a fascinating statement. Pride, it's not about being the thing. It's about being more of the thing than someone else. If everyone else became equally rich or clever or good looking, there would be nothing to be proud about. It is the comparison that makes you proud, the pleasure of being above the rest. And then this one-liner. Once the element of competition has gone, pride has gone. Man, that made me just sit there and think, wow, is that the very essence of pride? Is if I removed competition from my life, would pride have nothing to thrive on anymore? So that one got me thinking. And then Elder Holland, April 2002, The Other Prodigal. Okay. You remember the talk? I do. The world tells us what matters, and all too often we listen. In doing so, we fail to hear the Lord through the Spirit offering us a better perspective. We need to tell ourselves over and over, say it in our prayers, teach it in our lessons, discuss it in our family home meetings and our podcasts. That was just me. The Lord loves us, doesn't favor any one of his children over another, and isn't conducting a contest. This statement. We're the ones who invented competition with one another. And if we're thinking right, we'll get out of the game. We're the ones who invented competition with one another. Thoughts?
This is tricky.
I know,
and partly it's tricky. I don't want to step on toes. I do enjoy watching sports sometimes. Not a big participator, but but it is idea that there is this idea of the danger of pride. It's very clear that pride is a comparison. It is about being better than. That's. I mean, C.S. Lewis has it completely right. There's no doubt about that. And this idea of competition being there as something, as Elder Holland says, that we invented, that we should get out of the game. And I think coming back to our original statement of who are we competing with? If I'm competing with others, if I'm determined to make sure that everyone knows that I'm better than this group of people, that's a legitimate problem. But then he said, if I use competition as feedback, as a chance to improve myself, as a chance to play. I mean, some of it's just playing. Like I'm sorry, I can't go play pickleball by myself. I just do that.
It gets boring. I've tried it before.
It just doesn't work. You can only play so much solitaire before you want something else.
Yeah.
But that idea but there is a very big difference, even going down to family game night, of if family game night is ending in someone mad because you're playing Monopoly and someone has to be mad, then you've missed the entire point.
Have you had family game nights that have ended that way?
No one will play Monopoly with me, Ryan.
Keely, have you and your family had game nights that turn out to be more contentious than uplifting?
Yes.
Right? And you start to see that there's this thing because it's rarely 100% or 0%.
Yeah.
Meaning, I think we try a lot of things for the fun, for the experience, it is in a lot of ways a competition against myself because I want to improve. Yeah. But the outcome, I think, usually shows us that there are at least layers in there that we have this need to win, which has to do with pride.
Yep. Well, and I think that need to win, which comes to with pride, is huge. But I think we've also all experienced the time where the competition really was just a joyful experience, where you have that family game night and it's great memories and a lot of fun.
I hope we've had some of those. I don't know. I think some people listening right now would be like, I can't remember too many of those.
You're like, Dad, that's really cute that you say that, but that's a lie.
That's the ideal. That is not the real.
But I think there is these moments where it is fun, playing ping pong with your kids or doing this or having a race around the house or whatever it is. There can be a lot of joy and fun where you really, truly don't care about the winner. It's about connection. It's about experience, about those types of things. So I think, and this is not what you're saying, I don't think the Lord's asking us to get rid of things out of our life where we're playing against someone else.
No.
We're doing that, or we're even comparing is a scary word, but we're there with other people.
There's a measuring stick. There's other people.
Stick, right? That's not what we're saying. What we're saying is, don't have your happiness based on where you stand according to somebody else in some way.
Now take that out of sports and even game nights and think about even in living the gospel.
Oh, absolutely.
Callings in the church.
Yeah.
Missionary work and who's successful in leadership callings.
Yeah.
families that are looking more successful. I mean, it's capitalism. I mean, this is the innovative thing. Capitalism is built on competition.
Yeah, right.
Right. And I'll hear, as Americans, we get very proud and think that that God's system is capitalism. God is not a capitalist. He's a consecrationalist. I don't know if that's the exact term, but even just think about like the economy that we buy in, the society it is based on competition. And so it is just baked in to so much of the world that we live in that I think we can start to just inhale and think, no, this is good and productive, because it does have elements that can be good.
Yes.
But even capitalism or, all these things that might have some good things that come from competition, think of all the bad that happens because of a capitalist market and competition.
Well, and with that, it all comes back to those negative elements of pride, of better than, and have more than. And those types of things of where can it be? Where is it? And because, like you said, there are good things. I mean, there's no doubt of the blessings that the world has received as a result of some of these competition that we have, economic competition and markets and things like that. There's massive blessings and massive problems.
Yes. So here's the interesting thing. If we would have done it, if we did it the Lord's way, consecration, could we have had all the benefits plus more without the bad?
Right, of where you work, you do your own thing, you prosper, and you give and you share, and you don't worry about the fact that this person has the same as you, or is there, and that, I mean, it's a rough question, right? Because then you have to ask. It's interesting. You say this, and this, I don't have the quote off the top of my head. It's in Brothers Karamazov by Dostoevsky, and he's talking about this idea of a new world type thing. And one of the things he mentions is the idea that in order for this to work, the psychology of men needs to change, is what he says. Now, that was a horrible paraphrase, but I'm sorry, I just don't have the entire book memorized right now.
We'll trust you.
But that idea of part of it really is this character shift in us. And I think sports is a metaphor, or economics is a metaphor, or not a metaphor, just an example of it, of these things in life, is that the real question I think God's getting at, because we have to live in the real world, as it were, is, can you learn to stop being worried about where your ranking is? Whether that be at church, whether that be on the tax scale, whether that be on the baseball diamond, whatever it is, can you stop worrying about where you are in relation to anybody else?
It's hard.
It is hard.
Can we dive into Scripture?
Yes, please.
Because with that context, I think there are some fascinating Scripture examples. So Abraham 3. Let's start Abraham 3. Because I think it's one of the first ones that we get to see in Scripture played out in the premortal realm between two brothers. And again, it doesn't use the word competition, but the story is interesting. The last two verses. So Abraham 3, 27, 28. And the Lord said, whom shall I send? And one answered like unto the Son of Man, here am I, send me. And another answered and said, here am I, send me. And the Lord said, I will send the first. And the second was angry. So I'll even read you the note that I put in my scriptures. Why was he angry? In God's plan, all had the opportunity for eternal life, right? This doesn't change any opportunity for Lucifer to receive all that the Father hath. Worlds without end. So why is he angry? Also, whoever the Lord chose would have to suffer an incomprehensible suffering as part of the atonement. Shouldn't Lucifer have felt relief when he was not chosen? Like, it just hit me one day, like, he should have felt relief, like, ooh, I was volunteering because, or I had my own idea, but okay, I can still have all the blessings. I can still have there had to have been some element of competition at the heart of this.
Well, and that's where you go to Moses 4, and wherefore give me thine honor. He wanted to, and he wanted to inhabit the throne of God, take that place. He wanted to be the Most High.
Moses chapter 1, worship me. I am the first. I am the Son of God. You know, at the heart of Satan's downfall was he saw that it was competition with him and Jehovah.
Exactly. Well, and it's Isaiah 14. I will exalt myself above the stars. I will do all of these things. It is that. It's all pride. And we've talked about pride a lot because it keeps coming back to this. It is that competition of, I'm not okay doing this. Well, and if we can be fair, a lot of the pushback we received from our episode on odds are you're going to be exalted had the very element of those people are going to be in the celestial kingdom.
That's not fair.
That's not fair. That's like, I'm not okay sharing that, which is a, I know I've mentioned this before, the C.S. Lewis Great Divorce of where he has different people meet you as you enter heaven and you decide whether or not you want to be there. But that idea of so many people like, oh, if I'd known you were here, I wouldn't have, I thought it was going to be more exclusive, right? Like heaven's only good if it's an
special.
exclusive place. Like it's only good if only the people that I think are worthy of being here. Like, oh, wow, I didn't know that God was set a standards quite this low. But it's a competition. And now all of a sudden getting to the celestial kingdom, exaltation is no longer oh wow, let's see if we can work to get as many of God's children here as possible. It becomes like, no, this is only something I want if I can make sure that I use it as proof that I'm better than everybody else.
If the competition was us against Satan,
Yeah.
but we're all together, it's like how many of us can get on the winning team
and fight this opposition?
Yes. Then again, that's the healthy, because he is the opposition. He is what's trying to draw upon my natural man. He is what's trying to drag all of me and my brothers and sisters down.
Yeah.
But these are my brothers and sisters. These are my teammates. It's not me against them.
Yeah.
But so much of I just, from the very first glimpse of the premortal world, we've known for a long time that it's pride that took Lucifer down. But if we named it also competition, I think that would cause us to take a step back and say, it was competitive in nature. That's what the pride was being manifested in.
Yeah. Well, go ahead.
So just a couple other parables then that we talked about with odds are you're going to be exalted, one of these, but think of two parables here. So the parable of the laborers.
Yep. Definitely a competition.
It's competition.
I worked harder. I worked longer. I should get more.
They got everything that he said he was going to give them, but the minute there's someone else that they are comparing themselves to, that's when there's problems in the story.
Exactly.
Parable of the prodigal son.
Yep.
The older son is fine until
the younger son gets the fat cow party.
I got the fat cow party. So I'm going to name my next party. Come to the fat cow party. There is no problems, it doesn't seem, until there is someone that he is comparing himself to. And he is then receiving less than treatment. He is not as loved or not. And then these issues start to bubble up with his father.
Yeah.
It's this comparison and competing. Mark 10. 35 through 45. Do you remember John and James and their request to Jesus?
Can I sit down at your right hand?
Will you just grant us that one of us will be on your right hand and one of your left hand? And can we go there real quick? Because there's an interesting verse. So this is Mark 10. Let me find the verse. Verse 40, 41 in Mark 10. Jesus does not love their request, and he kind of gets into some stuff if you're not ready to receive what you're asking for. You don't just get these positions on my right and left hand unless you go where I'm willing to go, right? But then after that, skip down to 41, and when the 10 heard it, they began to be much displeased with James and John. Obviously, why are they displeased? It's this competition. Oh, you're trying to set yourself as better than us. And how dare you, James and John? And then there's this, and it's very real, among apostles are competing to be the most loved apostle even.
Yes.
That's scary that we've used this to like in a righteousness, I'm more righteous than, or put us...
And when we use the terms now, holier than thou, that type of thing, where we really do, we look at this, or the question like you brought up, callings on your mission. Were you a zone leader? Were you a district leader? Were you a sister training leader? Were you an AP? Keely's mad at us for certain reasons, but that's okay. Inside story right there. But
we got to share the inside story.
Keely was complaining that all APs were jerks, and Brian and I are like,
and then she asked us if we had ever had that calling in our missions, and then we didn't want to answer because we thought it might change her view of us.
You're making me sound really bad. I love all people. I believe in change, but I had bad experiences.
Which probably, again, and there's a loaded story, and not to be overly stereotypical.
I shouldn't have done that. I'm so sorry, Keely.
But it does highlight, again, how many of us through our mission experience, I know I had to fight it, and I saw it on the other end of those who had leadership callings. There was anyone who received those callings had to fight the feelings of pride and comparison, and anyone who was on the butt end on the other end felt some of that pride probably being manifested toward them. Oh, you think that you're better then because you have this calling.
Yeah, exactly. Or the unfairness of it, of like, wait a second. I've seen him out and about, and I teach better than him, or I'm a better,
Compare and compete are like twins. They they feed off of each other.
Right. And I still remember the very first thing my mission president told me when he called me to that calling and sat me down. He's like, all right, so here's what I need you to know, Elder McConkey. You are not here because you were special.
I love that he told you that.
He said, you are here because the Lord wants you here, and I have no idea why that is, but welcome.
I see
almost with a hint of, because if it were left up to me, we would not be having this conversation. You would have been last on my list.
There were others who could have done a much better job, which, I mean, it's the same idea. And it's just silliness to play this idea of like, oh, I've had this calling, or I've done this, or I've done this, or I've been Relief Society president. So good, last I checked, that's not a requirement for exaltation.
No.
It doesn't.
But I feed into it,
right? Of course you do.
I think even the way I introduced myself to my hard questions, real answers classes that semester, I was just kind of telling them, you can ask me some questions. I've been a dad, I've been a husband, but I've been a missionary. I've been through the temple. I've been a bishop. I put it on my resume as like, look, I'm qualified to and there's part of me that's like, no, I was just sharing with them like if they have questions that might pertain to my service as a bishop. Yeah. But there's part of me that wants to put it out there to be like, look, I'm legit. And I hate that.
Well, and I think obviously we all do it, right? Like it's all part of who we are, and it is.
I don't want it to be part of who I am.
I know. But
sorry, keep going.
But there is that legit question like you're talking about. And this is where it gets dicey. And it gets dicey because there are good reasons for them to know that you're a bishop. There are a lot of questions young adults have are about repentance and confession and what does a membership council actually look like? And you're I have experience with this. And so there is that, we've talked about this so often of intent matters. Like why you do what you do matters. Even coming back to our original things, am I running the race to see where I am, or am I running the race to see where I am in comparison to somebody else? And those are two very different things, but it can be a very rough thing. And then if we can add one more little mix into the fray is, does having someone else there make you better because you're trying to catch them in that race? And now I'm gonna pick on you,
okay?
Because you are a professional athlete.
Oh, stop!
So, which is true.
Old
right?
man pickleball in St. George does not count as professional.
Have you been paid for it?
Maybe.
Okay, so I rest my case. so professional athlete here. There is something. Do you play better when you are up against someone who is better? So if you went and played pickleball against me versus someone in one of your tournaments, would you play better at the tournament or against me?
It does raise the level of my pickleball when I am against a better opponent.
All right. Okay. So now I'm at the same time, can you do that without engaging in comparison and competition right there and just make it about you getting better?
Yeah. Okay, and let me, because I've wrestled with that exact thought,
okay.
and so here's what I've wondered. I started to think about what's the antonym of competition. I don't know, what would first pop in your mind?
Cooperation?
That was the one that hit me. And I started sitting there thinking, okay, if that's the antonym, and if this really is something that men invented, right? Again, going back to this whole idea of counterfeits, that Satan produces counterfeits that have a cocaine effect to them, that it can have a high. If I think the point is being a better pickleball player, then I think competition will start to give me a high because it feeds into that I really am a better pickleball player. But maybe the point isn't about being a better pickleball player. Maybe the point was about being a better human.
Okay.
And if I were to be honest, if I played you versus someone who was higher level, it would be easier for me to be a better human against you because I could enjoy the friendship, the camaraderie. I would enjoy hitting you once or twice. I would feel more cooperative. I would want you to get better. Okay. I would even probably give you pointers as we played. I would be much more cooperative because the point wouldn't be winning a match. And again, I'm just thinking in the big. Would that work in the sports world? I don't know.
Yeah.
But in the if using Paul's metaphor, if life and the gospel is a race in some ways, I wonder if the kind of like surprise at the end is God standing at the finish line like, well, no, it wasn't based on the best time. I wanted to see how many people you brought with you.
Yeah.
Like that was the race. Yeah. How many people could you cooperate with? Now we're to those stories in the Olympics where someone stops and helps someone who had tripped, or where all of a sudden it speaks to this much deeper, like, wow, that brought out the best. It wasn't about being the best runner. It brought out the best human in them. I had to cooperation. What if I replaced in my life, this would, talk about changing the way that men think. What if I replaced competition in my family game nights, in my economics, the way that I spend money, in my gospel living? If any time it felt like it was a competition, I flipped it on its head and thought, no, this is a chance for cooperation. What would that do to my actions and thought processes in that moment?
All right. I mean, that's a really good question.
I would have to reorient my thing, because sometimes that feels natural. I want to cooperate in some.
Yeah.
But in others, I am just naturally competitive. I'm just naturally thinking about being first in lots of ways. Again, not 100%. Like I try not to be a jerk all the time. I tone down the jerkiness. I'm not as jerky as I was when I was 18 and thought that winning was everything. But in so many parts of my life, it's still there, and I still battle with it. And so cooperation is a fascinating word to replace competition.
Well, and it's a fascinating word in terms of, and I'm thinking of it in terms of what we would historically and culturally view as just natural competitions, right? Of that, and I'm playing with this because this is a tough wrestle. Like I'm not out there competing in things. My exercise is very individualized that I do, but it's an interesting thought of what it looks like. And like you said, those moments in the Olympics that we all live for, those beautiful moments, or even not quite as dramatic, but just what we call good sportsmanship, is where it gets different. The players that help other players on the other team up, that cheer for their successes, that you see them saying, hey, good job, that was amazing. Just simple things like that start to shift things significantly, of the help or the tips or the help me out, make me better, of this idea of there's so much that can be done to make us more cooperative with each other in every area of life.
Doesn't that feel like Zion?
Right.
Doesn't that feel like consecration? Doesn't that feel like the covenant? Again, that's why I think I've been around a lot of people who are dedicated Latter-day Saints, and they've made the same covenants of me, but they also live in the same world, and especially if they had come from either athletics or being successful in business or whatever. And as I've asked them about competition, there's been a lot of pushback to fight and hold on to this thing is like, no, this is good. Yeah. This is healthy. And I just, can I take you to one more place that I've been thinking about in the scriptures? It's in Doctrine and Covenants 58. Because again, I just wanted to, if it's there, it's the same question that we asked when we were talking about self-confidence. If self-confidence is such an important thing in our lives, why doesn't God talk about it and explain it to us in the scriptures, right?
It's not there.
And so if competition really is something that I should hold on to, even if it's in a purified form of competition, like, teach me, Lord, show me where it is. And instead, we get the Lord saying things like this to W.W. Phelps. This is in section 58 of the Doctrine and Covenants, verses 40 and 41. And also let my servant William W. Phelps stand in the office to which I have appointed him, and receive his inheritance in the land. And also he hath need to repent, for I, the Lord, am not well pleased with him, for he seeketh to excel, and he is not sufficiently meek before me. Isn't excelling a good thing?
I would say yes, right?
I would have too before WW got called out for repentance for seeking it.
Yeah.
And again, I think there's words matter. We've said that like in every episode, like what does the Lord mean? What does he not mean? The only way that I can make sense of this verse is that to seek to excel above someone else.
Yes.
And the minute whatever excuses, whatever rationalizations that I want to use of it being healthy, of it making me better, of it bringing out the best in me, I think it only brings out the best in a temporary worldly view assessment, right? I could be a better pickleball player. I could make more money if, yes, competition does bring out some of that in me. But to be more Christ-like, if I am seeking to excel, chances are to excel, there has to be someone that I am excelling above.
Yeah, you're excelling. You're not excelling unless there's a ranking going on.
I just find a lot more evidence to that makes me want to let go of this competitive spirit that is just ingrained in me.
Well, I think, I think it's profound, and it is difficult. It is. It's hard. And as someone who's not specifically coming from a competitive world, so to speak, it's still even hitting hard here. Like for me, this idea of but once again, the idea is it's us versus Satan. It's us versus ourselves versus the natural man. Why am I letting anybody else take that place of opposition in my life? Because it does make a difference. And I look to it, and even some of the experiences, the silly things I referenced from the Olympics, there's those races that have a very different feel to them. It's very different to watch a 100-meter dash than it is to watch a marathon, where it really is about finishing the race.
Yeah.
And everyone's being cheered. And like, hey, I got 535th place in the marathon. I didn't. I've never finished a marathon because that's ridiculous. Okay, the original story, the man died. It was a warning. Okay, so but
to be continued in another episode.
but that idea of like there's a very big difference because it really is about what's your personal best. And I've seen teams like that where it really is like, okay, how are you doing? I look back to when my kid was in Little League, and I was about the worst dad ever in Little League, not because I was the one yelling at the fence, because if my kid wanted to play baseball, he needed to be born into a different family. I could not teach him anything or help him in any way. But his coach was one of the most glorious people around, and this poor kid, he'd been on this guy's team for 3 years. The first year, he froze at every single time at bat, never swung once, right? Just terrified. After like 2 years, I want to say 2 years, the coach finally comes like, just swing. I don't care if you strike out. Just swing. I remember it's toward the end of the season. He swings, he hits the ball, gets out at first base. Every single coach, every single adult there came, gave him a high five, told him how proud they were of him. That was amazing. Did you see that swing? You hit that ball. Like, no one cared. Not a single word. Not a single word about the fact that he got out on first base. Nothing. It was just, look at you. You did something better. You are different than who you were just 3 months ago. And that is...
There's a spirit there that is very different, and it's not competition.
And it's not.
There's no winning, the outs, that doesn't matter. It's the human spirit being encouraged to become its best self that we cheer on. It's the cooperation.
And it was amazing. And I love that. I love the coach that he had for those 3-4 years in Little League, because it was exactly what he needed for where he was, and exactly what I needed as a parent who had no idea what I was doing regarding baseball. And it was, as he said, my goal with your kids is for them to love baseball and to have a good time. Yeah. And he ended up loving baseball and having a marvelous time.
Yeah. You get glimpses. Some people get it. Yeah, Keely.
So just as we were talking about this, I was just thinking about my own experience. Growing up, I was always kind of known as a competitive person, and I played, every sport that you could think of, like the soccer, basketball, softball, track, everything. And I kept quitting each one. And I was just trying to find something that felt like that felt okay, because I didn't like who I was during the sports, because I'd get competitive and I didn't like who I was when I was competitive. I finally ended on tennis, which is like ironic because in tennis they have like a ladder and you can see exactly who's above you and exactly who's below you. But for some reason that worked for me, and I think it was a different spirit, because when you're playing tennis, like if you hit a shot, they're like, nice shot, It's a very kind, much kinder environment than I felt with, like, softball was my other big one. Like, I tried out my freshman year, didn't make it, but I was okay with that. But as I've gotten older, I've tried to just kind of avoid competitiveness, because once again, I don't like who it makes me. But now that we've had this conversation of turning competitiveness into cooperation, I've realized that I've probably missed out on so many opportunities to cooperate and learn from other people because I'm avoiding a competitive atmosphere. And I think that it shows that I need to have more confidence and self-control in God to help me to not become competitive. Like, I can be in that atmosphere, but I don't have to be a competitive person. I can be there and I can have a good time and I can cooperate with others and have that bonding time.
Yeah.
And I just need to realize that I can do that as long as I rely on God and I turn to Him and ask Him to help me with that.
Yeah, I love that.
It comes back from thinking about what is the end? What is the point of all this? If I think the point is winning, competition and comparison will naturally be expressed in the way that I act, and I will become a jerk. And if I think that the end goal is cooperation, that will naturally be manifest in the way that I treat everything that's happening.
Yep.
One last confession, and then we'll kind of maybe bring this full circle. But again, I share this just, I hope anyone listening, especially fellow student or students of mine, don't think that I'm a total jerk. Because again, this isn't like all the way that I think. I just, that this is enough in my soul that I've recognized it and I share it, that I hope maybe other people recognize some things in their own hearts. But even with teachers, like I love being on this faculty. I consider everyone on this faculty a friend. I consider them some of the best teachers. I've been doing this for 22, 23 years. We teach with some of the best teachers I have ever been around.
We really do.
Yourself included. I love
blessed.
watching you teach. You are so good. And I'll have these moments where I'll have a dear student and I just love having them in class. They're wonderful. And then the next semester comes and they don't take one of my classes. And I find out they're in Brother McConkey's class. And I'm okay with that at the start until they'll say something, or I'll just ask them how they're doing, and they'll start to rave about your class or something. And 90% of me is like, that's awesome. I love Brother McConkey and I love you. And then there's this part of me that's like, oh, I wish you liked me as much as you like Brother McConkey. Or I must not be as good as, because I guess you had my class, but now you've gone over to like the true teacher. And I start doing this comparison.
Yep.
That puts me in competition with you. I would never tell that to you unless we are now confessing on a podcast.
On podcast for anyone to view online. But
Yes. Now it's out there for the whole world to see, and now every other person on the faculty will be like, "Oh, Ryan's a jerk. He's always comparing himself to us." Again, it's not the forefront of my thinking, but it's there.
Oh.
It's real.
Oh, it's absolutely real.
It's stupid.
It is stupid. And just so you're clear, you're not alone. I think, especially at the institute where the kids do,
They vote with their feet.
And it's hard sometimes where you're like, oh, I guess. Never mind.
Only 3 of you came to this class, and I was teaching at the same time as another day. Are you getting an insight into like watching the inner workings?
I'm like, oh, you poor things. Now I want to take everybody's classes.
That makes us feel better.
We're dealing with it, but and like you said, it's not the forefront of your mind. But there's moments where it hits, and you're like, and then you're like, what's wrong with me?
What's wrong with me is I think life is a competition,
and it's not.
I think teaching. I think in my own family. I think life's a competition. If I think life is a competition, I get hurt for the wrong reasons and I get prideful for the wrong reasons. Like either way, I'm either winning or losing, and either one turns me into not my best self. Yep. If I think I'm better than, or if I think I'm worse than, Satan is just up there winning.
Yep.
I just want to share one more quote that hit me, and then you end us off with.
I've got a couple little quick thoughts.
So Bonnie Parkin, former Relief Society president of the church, February 2007, quote, "Life is not a competition to win today. It is an opportunity to lose yourself in spontaneous acts of service. That is happiness." Let's go around and sell that and see how well that goes on. The whole point of life is to lose, not to win.
Yeah. Lose yourself.
But it's true. And now I could find scripture justification.
Yeah, all
Jesus
over the place.
Christ himself saying, "He who will lose his life." I mean, there it is right there. There's our even wording that we could attach to. You want to figure out how to win? Lose.
Yeah.
I need to learn how to think differently. Life is not a competition. It is something that we created, and I've inhaled it. I've adopted it. I've embraced it, and I am now fighting an uphill battle because it is just part of my soul, and it's the part that I don't like anymore.
And I appreciate your honesty and your openness and this conversation, because it's a rough one, and it's rough. It's rough on every level, because it is hard. And I love that you took us here to this idea of losing yourself, because that's sort of where I landed as I was pondering what was going on here, right? Is going to something that Keeley said, of opportunities lost because of competition. And I look to my own life of if I had viewed things not as competition, not as a chance for people to see how bad I am or how good I am, how much more would I have done? How many more experiences would I have had growing up?
Relationships I could have fostered and connected with.
Friendships and personal growth and physical strength and all these types of things, that if I had just not seen it as a competition, even if I wasn't even using that word, in comparison to other people or whatever, how much would I have lost? And I think this idea of losing is finding yourself. It's an interesting thing. And I picked on you about pickleball, and I'm gonna make you feel better. But
You're sweet.
But I think there's something to be said there of there's a powerful thing where it's cooperation, where it's personal growth, where it's learning, of being willing to put yourself in situations where everybody is better than you. That is where you grow. That is where you get better. And it is really hard to...
On my pride.
It's so hard on your pride to be like, I am now the worst one in the room. I am now not nearly as good as everybody else. And it is rough. And it's scary to be there. And there's times where you don't. I look back in my life of... this is not a sports thing, but there's competition everywhere, right? Music's one of the great places of competition. If I can say one of the greatest regrets of my life is getting to BYU, hearing people sing and determining that I should never sing again, and never doing anything with music at BYU. And it was one of the dumbest decisions I've ever made.
You missed out.
I missed out big time, because I thought it was a competition rather than a chance for me to go and have great things there. And I could have done things. And it's funny, the group I sing with now, which it took me a long time to get to the point where I felt comfortable to audition. Am I the best one there? No, not even close. Am I a better singer because I've now decided that it's okay to go and sing with people who are way better than I am? Absolutely I am. It makes me better every single time. And I lose the race every single time. But as a loser, I am winning left and right, because I am now no longer afraid to be like, oh, well, you're better than me. Sweet. What can you teach me?
What can you teach me? What could I learn?
What can I learn?
I want to approach life, and I want you both to remind me on this every day. I want to just wake up, and the goal being that day is cooperation.
Yeah.
Like, if that is my goal in my family, if that is my goal in my work, if that's the way that I approach classes and our faculty and my ward, it's all cooperation, not competition, not comparing. I think that will be one of the most life-changing paradigm shifts that anyone could experience. Is it's all about cooperation, not competition.
I agree. I need to lose more.
Me too. Jesus was right.
He was right.
Again.
I just need to repent. But no, thank you. Thank you for this. I'm going to be pondering and repenting on this for a very long time.
No, thanks for the wrestle. This is a good one for me.
Thank you so much, Ryan.
Yep.
Thank you for joining us, and we hope to see you again on Gospel Chats.